Hello, good morning from Europe. This hour I will be with you with the short market update. Actually, we're gonna check what's going on in the market. Today is the Monday, March 30, and we will see the news. We will see the news, economic news, geopolitical news, and we will check how these news can affect the markets today and next days during this week as we are starting a short weekend, the week with the Good Friday holiday later this week. Uh, to start the week, to start the market, looking at the market, we have no more choice than check the geopolitical news. Iran war continues for day 31. It's like already 30 days passed, and we enter to 31st, 36th, 31st day of this war. Last night, Donald Trump in his speech, and then later in a press conference, he said that there are positive signals that we had with the Iranian and in the talks that it is going on in Pakistan. I mean, indirectly in Pakistan. And Pakistan, actually, Pakistan is officials, they say that they are trying to handle a meeting between Iranian and American later this week. This is what the Pakistanis said. They are hoping on this, but I don't think that could be so much possible in the next days, as both sides they are so far than each other, and what the Iranian ask or what the Americans ask, what the Iranian can give, they are very different. However, Donald Trump says that most of the 15 points that they were asking from Iranian, that sounds like the Iranian, they accept that. This is what the Iranian, they decline, and they say that America is asking about the things that, negotiations that they couldn't reach in a war. However, when we now that deploying the militaries to the Persian Gulf with almost so far with more than 5,000 troops deploying in the Middle East and ready to go to Iranian islands. That while we know all this geopolitical, all these tensions is going on, there are some talks. On the other hand, we know that the Iranian also say that we are ready for the troops. We are ready and waiting for the American troops to come in Iran. We know that in the recent days, some militias from Iraq entered to the Iranian the Iranian just like the southern cities, and now sounds like they are Iranian. They're trying to bring their militias from other countries to support and help them. On the other hand, we know that the Houthis also started to attack to the Israel, at least to Mosul. We know that they had in the streaks that they had in the last days, and also they are treating, if it's needed, they may close the Red Sea and Strait of Bab el Mandab, which is very, I mean, under control of the very, it's like very easily under control of the Yemenis. And sounds like with these things, why it's important, because Saudis right now, they are shipping the oil through this Red Sea with more than 3 million barrels a day with the pipeline that they had from Saudi Arabia to those areas. Instead of coming to the Persian Gulf, it goes to the Red Sea and exporting the oil from that side. And if we know that if the Omanis, yeah, I'm sorry, if the Yemenis and Houthis in Yemen, they want to close the Bab el-Mandab and the Red Sea, that can increase the prices too much. And that's why we saw that the prices earlier today, oil price again increased with the WTI around $103, 100, $101, and Brent oil about $107. We know that the Brent oil a few hours ago reached even to $115, now slightly lower, but generally the oil price is very high in the market right now, and that can affect the inflation numbers, which is later this week. We will have them from many different economies during this week and the next week, at the first edition or the first surveys of the March inflation numbers will be out later this week. That's what's happening in the market, and the market is still under the control of this news. We know that so far, especially after President Trump talked last night, the stock market in the United States States, Wall Street had a positive reaction. US 30 increased by almost 2%, while the S&P 500 gaining 0.3%, sorry, 0.2% Dow Jones, S&P 500 gaining 0.3%, and NASDAQ gained by 0.4%. That's generally what's happening there. But when talking about the stock market, I have to say that Asian market didn't have the same reaction. While generally these news and updates affecting negatively the Asian markets, at the same time, the hawkish comments that Mr. Ueda, the BOJ governor, had earlier today, it also put the pressure on the Asian stocks market, especially on the Nikkei, losing by almost 3%, while on the other markets like Hang Seng, Shanghai, and Kospi in South Korea, or in New Zealand with the ASX 200, all of them, they had a negative reaction, and we know that all of them, they are in negative territory, losing the ground, especially looking at the Nifty, Hang Seng, they are losing much more than others. Generally, the stock market is still cautiously looking at the news and the geopolitical tensions, and we know that still the main market driver for now is this geopolitical news. Looking at the commodity markets, as mentioned, the oil price is increasing. Now we can see that the Brent oil is trading around $108, while WTI trading around $102. That's why the gas price is losing the momentum with around $3. Earlier today, we could see the gas price around, currently, it's around the $3, $2.93. Earlier today, we saw that the price down at around $2.85, but generally, the gas price is still high, around $2.93, still lower compared while the oil price is increasing. Gas price, more than 5% declined today. But gold, with the weaker US dollar, as bond yields lowering, gold and silver also gaining today, trading around about 4,550, and that means that generally we can say that the gold and silver price, after maybe on the other side we can say that was somehow the technical correction as well after losing momentum in the past weeks, but still it's a little bit tricky to talk about the gold higher prices so far in the short term. However, while looking at the market generally in the long term, it is still a positive. But for now, in the short term, especially as long as Strait of Hormuz is closed, we cannot be too much positive about the gold, as the investments and demand is lowering, not just about this geopolitical effect. Looking at the cryptocurrency market, after weekend lowering prices, Bitcoin slightly gained around $67,200. Ethereum still holding the $2,000 bond, that range, but generally still it's not a positive. This is the same reaction we can see for the BNB, Ripple, Solana, and other cryptocurrencies, that all of them, they are slightly gaining after weekend lows. Generally, the market is cautiously looking at the geopolitical news, and with the higher risk in the market, we can expect more downside pressure. When I'm talking about the higher risk, we can see that the VIX gained today with more than 13%, with 3.61 points, with 3.61 point. Now we can see the VIX above 31. That's very high level. It shows that while there are the talks about there are some positive signs about the talks and a possible peace agreement or the ceasefire between Iran and United States, but still the risk is high, and the market cannot too much count on what is going on. Looking at the economic calendar is today so light. We don't have too much data to watch. The German inflation for the March will be out. The US retail inventories will be out. But the most important news today can be the Fitcher Powell as we can see and understand how his comment is about the war effect on the prices and the possible Fed policies, that will be very important to watch. However, tomorrow, Tuesday, will be very, very important day. The day will start with the Tokyo's inflation, which is expected to gain. I do expect to see the March inflation in Tokyo to increase by more than increase above 2%. The market general expectation is about 1.8%. I do think that's the headline inflation can gain much more. I would thought the core inflation may be around 1.8%, but the headline inflation will be about 2.2%, something like that. And then we will have the PMI numbers, which is going to be the manufacturing PMI from the most economies across the world. And I do think those numbers will be covering the March and this war period. That's why I'm not too much positive about the PMI numbers that we are going to have from different economies. Tomorrow, we're going to have the British GDP numbers as well for the first quarter 2025. That's the last assumed that we're going to have this week, and we're expecting to see very weak numbers. Generally, the numbers that we're going to have during this week from United Kingdom economic data that we're going to have it, I am not too much positive about the economic data that we will have during the week from United Kingdom. Eurozone inflation tomorrow will be very, very important to watch. We know that the Eurozone inflation increased last month in February, increased to 1.9%. After that, we saw 1.7% in January. But with these numbers that we are having in the market right now in these days, I do expect the Eurozone inflation to increase towards 2.5% for the headline. The core inflation also is supposed to stay unchanged at 2.4% or slightly increase to 2.5% on the monthly base. I do expect the inflation to jump by more than 1%, while the previous month it was around 0.6%. Generally, the numbers that we got from the prices that we are going to have this week will be surprisingly high. The same thing we can expect for the ISM manufacturing prices as well, which is going to be out later this week. On Tuesday, the GLTs from the United States will be important. We are expecting to see again the same number, around 6,900,000 nearly job. The vacancies that we had. Generally, I don't think that too much difference will be we are going to have there. But CB consumer confidence, which is going to cover for the March and the period that the war started, I do expect to see again the weaker numbers down from the previous 91, 92. We're going to have it under 90 level. While this week from the Wednesday, the most holidays we're going to start the past holidays, and we know that the Good Friday holiday we're going to have on Friday in the United States. Generally, the market will be slightly more cautious with the lower cash in the market. From the Thursday, market starts from the Wednesday and Thursday, market focus will go towards US NFP numbers, which will be out on Friday. However, on Wednesday, again, we're going to have the ISM numbers as mentioned, PMI numbers from United States, ISM PMI numbers. I do expect to see the price ISM index for the prices to slightly increase. Other measures for the ISM like manufacturing PMIs, like manufacturing employment, I do expect those numbers to be slightly weaker. In Russia, unemployment rate supposed to stay unchanged at 2.2% or slightly increase to 2.3%, but generally low, while the retail sales expected to increase by more than 1.5%, while the GDP after 2.1% drop in February expected to increase by more than 1% in 2.1% drop in January, expected to increase by more than 1% in February. On Thursday, market is not going to be too much busy, but Friday market focus, while in most economies it's going to be the holiday, United States, the market will focus on NFP numbers. US NFP numbers will be very, very important to watch. We are expecting to see again unemployment rate to stay unchanged around 4.4%, participation rate not big change around 62%, while more than 50,000 newly created jobs is expected to be announced for March. However, looking at the gaining or income, we are expecting to see the average early incomes to slightly ease by 0.3% gain. After that, we had 0.4% increase previous month on the monthly basis. Annually basis going to be unchanged around 3.7, 3.8% annually for average earnings. That's generally what happened in the past days and what we're expecting to see today and later this week. Hope it was useful for you. Talk to you again tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye bye.